here. All right. I'm going to come up from here so you can see me. Who is the child in the window, looking out on cold December, waiting, watching for Charlotte? Who is the child lighting candles, singing songs of love, going and watching for Charlotte? Oh, this is Shabbos' child, child of wonder, Shabbos' child, the child of hope, Shabbos' child, the child in you and me. Oh, the child of hope, the child in you and me. Every once in a while I ask my teenage students, where is God? In your life, when was the last time God spoke to you, and what did God say? And so I want to share with you 3 or 4 of the answers that many of my Jewish teenage students have told me. I have the opposite problem at 53. I have to take my glasses off to read. Here's what some of them said. Dear God, do you remember the night late in the dark sky when the stillness and quiet blanketed my bedroom, says an 18-year-old. And I was crying to myself because I felt like there was no one else to cry to. I was reaching out to you to come back, to please come back and let me find the hope hidden behind my fear and sadness. Where did you go, God? Where did you go? And this one from a 17-year-old. Just a few days ago, I prayed to God to stop me from growing up. I don't know if it was him, but something told me, I've spoken to my grandmother in my dreams, and she tells me what God says, but I never seem to understand. This week's Parsha Vayetze is a story of Jacob, who for the first time leaves home. And Abraham leaves his home but brings a bunch of people with him. And Isaac never leaves home. Jacob, in the Bible, is the first of our forefathers that leaves home alone, on his own, to set out on his journey, just like your grandchildren and your children will do when they graduate from high school. They will go off and they will too find their own soul's voice on their own, and Jacob falls asleep. And you know the story? He dreams of a ladder that starts from the ground and goes up to the heavens, and on this ladder, right, there's the angels that go up and down, up and down. There are so many interpretations of what that means. The part that moves me the most about this week's Parsha is the moment that Jacob wakes up and he says, I didn't know God was here in this place. It's when we're alone, when they're alone. Shabbos' child, your grandchild, your teenager, soon to explore the unexplored self, his driver's license, college entrance essay, sex, the unexplored self, going out into the dark to meet the faithful ache, when they will ask, where's God? And why is God forsaking me? I did not know that God was in this place. My brother says, we all lose God. We find God when we need God. Some of us find God on airplanes when there's turbulence. Some of us find God as the gates are closing, the proverbial gates at the Ne'ilah service. We're hungry, it's Yom Kippur, we want the pickled herring, and the gates are closing. One last moment, maybe God does exist. I'm going to try to sneak on through to get written in the book of life. And still, some of us start praying to God when we're in the Department of Health or in a doctor's office or a clinic, waiting for our HIV results to come back from our latest test because we had unsafe sex. I was invited to assist a student of mine who was 21 years of age. His name is Dalton, and he asked me if I'd go with him to get his HIV test. This was a couple of years ago, and I don't like going with my students when they ask me to go with them to get tested for HIV because it's just so painful. I don't think they should ever go alone. You should never go alone. But I don't want to be the one to go, but I gave him my word, and this is important, right? Our word is all we get to keep in this lifetime. Money comes, money goes. And friends come and friends go, and health comes and health goes. What do we keep but our word? So I went. We went, he got tested on the first floor of this clinic for chlamydia and gonorrhea. He tested positive, or they thought. It takes about a week to get the results, but they were pretty convinced it was one. So they treated him for both because, and some of the doctors in this room know that if you test positive for chlamydia, you're treated for gonorrhea because they're kind of like fraternal twins. Bacteria. So he gets his pharmaceutical stuff, and he says to me, let's go to the fourth floor. I want to get the HIV test. I was hoping he would change his mind, because I thought if his results are positive for chlamydia and maybe gonorrhea, they're going to be possibly positive for HIV. And I was hungry, and I thought if his results are positive, I need sustenance to help him, support him with this news. So while he's on the fourth floor, waiting for his number to be called, I went to buy some blueberry muffins. I come back upstairs. He's already seen the test counselor. And back in the day, in 1987, when you got tested for HIV, you had to wait 3 weeks to get your results. 3 weeks, it's a miracle, and it's a wonder that anybody ever went back to wait in the waiting room to get their number to find out their results 3 weeks later. Today it's 20 minutes. And so Dalton had already gone to take the test. But now he's waiting in the waiting room for his results, and I had arrived. And on the wall, just like in the old days, is the black and white TV screen, which shows the symptoms of other STIs in Spanish, over and over and over. And he looks at me, and I say, what do you think the results are going to be? And he says, of course, they'll be negative. I mean, I only had unsafe sex just that one time. And then he said, but wait, there was that New Year's Eve party, and then there was the frat party. We tell ourselves the truth, but rarely do we tell ourselves the whole truth, right? The truth is that Dalton had unsafe sex. The whole truth is that he did it a bunch of times. But that's the piece we rarely admit. We leave that part out. So he's waiting for the footsteps, and when some of you know, when you're waiting for results for whatever the test it is you're waiting for, there's a heightened sense of awareness. Your senses are heightened, and I can hear footsteps coming down the hall, and I know they're for him. He bites into the blueberry scone. He looks at me and he says, oh my God, this is so good. It's blueberry. And he says, why are you being so nice to me? Why are you being so kind to me? And I wanted to say, because you asked me to be here, because there was nobody there when I got tested for HIV, but I simply said, because, Dalton, because I love you. The test counselor's footsteps got louder. She leaned against a doorway with her hands behind her back, and she said, Dalton, it's time. And he disappeared down the hall, just like Jacob, who ran from Esau and his father stealing the birthright to get his results. And Jacob said, I did not know that God was in this place. And Dalton waited in the next room to find out if his results were positive or negative. And I sat with the crumbs of the blueberry muffin he left behind and the loop of the black and white loop of the STI symptoms of chlamydia over and over on the TV screen. And the memories in my mind of the day that I got tested for HIV, the night 29 years ago, this week that I put myself at risk, and the day I told my mother the results. We rarely tell the whole truth. We'll say the truth, but not the whole truth. And if we do say it, we say it at the worst possible time. And if we have to tell our mothers or our buddies, we tell it maybe at the train station as we're waiting for the train to come in and our hands on the doorknob. It was Cedarhurst. It was 1988. In 5 towns. My mom and I were sitting in a car, and I'm thinking, I will tell my mother that I have HIV, that my results came back positive. positive because of that one time that I didn't use a condom, that one time, that first time. 29 years ago this week, the beginning of December. But I will tell my mother if God will show me a sign, because I need to know that God is in this place. And my mother said at that moment, would you look at that? There's my best friend, Laura, coming out of Alsteiner's, anybody? The Cedarhurst train station. And I said to God, I need one more son. And over her shoulder on the platform was my friend David Spencer. David Spencer, who was at my HIV support group the night before. David Spencer, who was there when I said that night, I'm going home tomorrow to tell my mom that I have HIV and I need your support. He was on the platform because he was a caterer waiter at Temple Sinai. And he was there a little early waiting for his train. So over my shoulder, my mother's best friend. Over her shoulder, my best friend. The two of us flanked by angels up and down the ladder. Jacob's ladder. The angels are always going up and down, side by side. They're there. God is always present, even in his seeming absence. In this place, although I did not know it. So I found the courage to say the words that I know my mother needed to hear me say, even though she knew without me saying them. Because mothers know, and grandmothers know. I don't remember how I said the words, Mom, I have HIV. I do remember what happened after. My mom's eyes were blue. And when blue eyes fill up with tears, they reflect a life that is so amazing, you can't look away unless you're the reason for those tears. My mom's eyes, which were blue, filled up with tears. And one tear found its way out of her eye, down the pink of her cheek, and rested on her jaw. And I wanted to say, Mom, wipe the tear. But I didn't say another word. What could I say? I couldn't say, Mom, I'll never do that again. It'll never happen again. Or I'll study harder. Or I'll be safer next time. It's too late. So I let my confession hang in the air like the tear off her cheek. And I watched the tear just hanging there. And the light from the lamppost on the Cedarhurst train station reflected through the tear on her jaw, and it fell off her cheek, off her jaw, and landed on the inside of her collar. My mother used a lot of makeup, and the foundation used to stay on the inside of her white collar. And I watched the tear spread onto the inside of her collar, full of makeup. I call that a stain of sorrow. And then she spoke. And she said that thing that mums say, and some dads, and bubbies and ziggies, you in this room. She said that thing that you say when you don't know what else to say, and at once it's beautiful, but it's also so painful, and it's a grunt, it's a syllable, it's a sound. She looked at me. I don't think she saw me. I think she saw the boy that I was at her elbow. I think she saw the man that I might not live to become. But she looked into my eyes nonetheless, and she spoke, and she said that sound that maybe you have made as well. She said, oh. And you know when you throw a pebble across the water and it skips a few times? She said it again. She said, oh. And you know how that pebble finds its place to sink down and rest? She said it one last time. She said, oh. And in that moment, I knew what I had done. When I hurt myself, I hurt the people who love me. And some of those people are people that are in my life now, or perhaps people I've yet to meet. Dalton returned from the hallway from the office where he got his results, and I said, well, what are the results? What are the results? He said, I'll tell you when we get downstairs. So we get downstairs to the street, and I said, what are the results? And he said, okay, it's negative. And I said, phew. And he said, I'll never do that again. I promise I'll never, ever do that again.